Freedom. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Crypto Vigilante. I'm here with Diego Salazar, Monero contributor and contributor of the Monerujo wallet project that is found in Android. And we've written a lot extensively about Monerujo, about the team, about how to contribute to the Monerujo project, to the free and open source software ethos of Monero. And we're here with Diego, and Diego, it's just awesome to have you here so you can shine some light to our community as to how they can better get involved with Monero. And yeah, everyone in our community loves Monero. We champion Monero. But the thing is that Monero as a currency is so robust and so secure that sometimes there is hesitancy to move beyond just being an investor in XMR.
Yeah, so it's, first of all, like, it's great to be here, and I can't say how refreshing it is to speak to an audience who actually share a lot of ideal cores with something like Monero, because you would be shocked how many times whenever I talk about Monero to people, I'm not selling Monero, I'm selling a worldview in which people value their privacy and their freedom. And some people will catch on, as the conversation goes on, and so they're like, okay, I can kind of see that. But then some people, it doesn't hit them right. They just can't accept this worldview. So Monero, it doesn't make sense to them. Whereas if you do have this worldview, Monero is pretty self-evident in why it's significant. So it's really refreshing to talk to an audience that understands this, and so I don't have to go through the first 80% of my conversation on this. So hey to everybody, my name is Diego Salazar. I go by my online handle Rehrar, R-E-H-R-A-R. Don't ask how I got that. I am a contributor of Monero. Primarily, I'm a UI UX designer. I do a lot of design work, application level, web level. Right now, the Monero GUI is not something that I designed, but I think it's got a lot of flaws, and so I'm reinventing it from the ground up.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. To make it easier to use, and as well, I do a lot of community work. So, like here at Defcon and C3 in Europe, and I was here last year as well, and do a lot of conferences to go to talk about Monero to people. Once again, to sell that worldview, sell that vision. So that's pretty much me. That's kind of what I'm all about. So what was the question? I got off on this tangent of me. And
well, we want to get to know you. And interesting that Monero has such a powerful presence at Defcon. And why is that? Why is Monero here and you don't see any other project here?
Yeah, so actually Defcon, for those of you who don't know, it's the biggest hacker conference in the world. And there's this root of kind of anti-corporatism and just because they want to keep things pure, so it's not necessarily that they're against entrepreneurship, it's just that they're against this whole kind of corrupt from the top down system that a lot of these other conferences where people pay large amounts of money to get to shill their nonsense to all these people, right? And Defcon wants it to be as pure as possible because that keeps the content quality and good and real, right? And so Monero, because we have this ethos, this kind of open source and hacker ethos at our roots, Monero is the only, the only blockchain presence here. There's another blockchain village, but there's no other named currency. There is just Monero. We are the only ones that have our own village. And it was the same way last year as well. There have been other cryptocurrencies that have tried, and they're just either too corporate or they don't have this ethos that really sticks with the DEFCON people and with what your audience is kind of all about. So that is really a sticking point. And every year we come back. This is our second year, and we've already asked them for next year, and things are looking pretty positive, right? So every year they're like, yeah, you guys do good work, and we like what you do, so we want you guys here.
That's awesome. So Monero, it's right now, you can't say that it's in its infancy. I mean, it's been around for 5 years now, and like I said, everyone in the buzz is that it is the most sound form of money within crypto, and we all know that. When people invest in it, our community loves it. It is, but because it's so rich, it is complex, right? So if you are an entrepreneur, like, what would you recommend? How can an entrepreneur get started right?
Yeah, so I actually just gave a talk, and the talk was really about kind of the user experience and interfaces of Monero, and the fact that because Monero is so powerful, it allows so many things. There's actually a little bit of a maze that's going on in terms of trying to present this power to people in the most usable way. Because with so much, you can think of a gigantic board of switches. You can do a lot of things with it, but you got to memorize where all the switches are and what they do. And so Monero enables a lot of things. It really empowers people through this privacy and freedom that is just at the core of what it is, right? But we got to try to condense all these switches down to a way that the majority of people would be able to comprehend, so they too can access this power. Because it shouldn't just be for everyone who takes the hours and hours and hours to learn this. This power should be for everybody. So kind of to speak to your question, what can people do? One of the things, unfortunately, is hurry up and wait, right? So the cool thing is that the interfaces are always evolving. Like I said, I'm working on a ground-up application, and over time, these things will be released and things will get better. The future is looking really, really bright because interfaces can always evolve much more than fundamentals can. And the fundamentals of Monero are really, really solid. So one of the biggest things you can do is, Chirasahan, you can donate money to the CCS as things come along, and things like Monerujo, which is a great project, by the way. And they are actually in the middle of reinventing several of their screens to make it a lot easier for the everyday person. Donations, like I said, are always a great way to get involved. But joining the community, kind of educating yourself on Monero, which it sounds like you've got a pretty educated audience, that is already looking and championing Monero, which is really awesome. But getting involved in the community, educating others around you, kind of talking about this kind of stuff, it really makes a difference. And not just makes a difference in terms of more people know about Monero, but the more people use Monero, we start getting more feedback from an interface perspective of, well, this is kind of confusing. So as designers so as a designer, not only am I interested in users, but I am also a business owner, and so as a business owner, I'm like, okay, how do I want to use Monero? And actually, so Monero conference, the Monero Conferencial was just last month, was it? It was last month.
Yes.
Yeah, and you were there too. And I was there selling merchandise for Monero, and it was a really, really difficult experience. Just because of some of the idiosyncrasies of Monero and of the protocol. And so really, I got really inspired. I want to make an application that's just for entrepreneurs, mom and pop shops, physical locations, that it really simplifies a lot of these processes. Because right now we have the things like Square, like you swipe the things and credit cards and the Google Stripe and all these, right? Where they make point of sale terminals. And so we're looking into making one of those as well. And so we're already well into the first design of how that would look like. Information on that will actually be probably posted within the month in terms of the first design. So be looking out for that. It's actually really exciting. And yeah, that's what I got for you right now.
So there's a different emphasis in the type of entrepreneurship that happens in crypto, depending on the cryptocurrency, right? So Monero specializes itself in being perfect money. It is the most perfect form of currency with its fungibility and its monetary properties that are just pristine, right? The issue, and maybe it's not an issue, but I see that you specifically have been trying to bridge this gap within the within the Monero network, which is there is the open source ethos, right? Which is open source, peer-reviewed technology, right? Where the emphasis is not as much on capitalism, on capitalizing on the technology, but whereas it's an environment of reviewing, making sure that everything is secure and that it's peer-reviewed and that the technology is solid, right? That has been almost like from my perspective, at the beginning of Monero, it's always been the heart of Monero. It's what brought everyone together, right? This is the reason why we're at Defcon, right? But then there's this capitalist mindset, this entrepreneurial mindset that's coming in that I see you bridging, right? What do you see from a communal perspective within the Monero community? How is the community embracing that? What challenges are ahead in moving beyond open source to a more market-driven endeavor, right? And it's that calibration of open source ethos and market-driven endeavor that I see Monero moving into. If you could please shine some more light into that so that entrepreneurs watching this can see for themselves, oh, okay, well, maybe now I understand how I can acquiesce to the Monero culture at it, right?
So a bridge was actually a really good analogy because you're right. There's all of this kind of high-level theoretical, mathematical things that make Monero what it is. And so everyone knows that Monero is supposed to be money, right? But if it's just money on a theoretical level and not kind of on a accessible capitalistic level, like you said, then really it's not doing its job well. It can't just be money in theory, it has to be money for real, right? So it has definitely been a bridge to get to that point because developers and coders and mathematicians are good at developing and coding and mathematics. They're not necessarily good at the business aspects, right? So then when we're trying to build that bridge, I think for the long time, because Monero is 5 years old, so like you said, not super young, but also not super old, we had a lot of those types of people working on it, and they weren't building that bridge as fast as they could have or as efficiently as they could have. But there are definitely others like me in terms of business owners or a growing community of people who actually want to start using Monero for what it's meant to be used for. So I'm actually very excited because this infrastructure, because really that's what you're going to need. You're going to need an underlying infrastructure that's going to enable Monero to be mobilized, I guess is the correct word, enable Monero's economic power to be mobilized. And these things are being built, not just by myself, like with this application for point-of-sale systems, but as an example, WooCommerce websites, that online websites for WooCommerce and Shopify, and there's a couple of others. You can go to like MoneroIntegrations.com. There are people that are making these things specifically for merchants that want to accept Monero in an easy way that goes directly to their wallet with no third parties, right? So it's not a third party accepting it on your behalf and then sending it to you. It's just you. The money is just going to you. So these things are starting to not just be built but be improved upon. A lot of the internet runs on WordPress and WooCommerce. A lot of shops run on Shopify, and so actually mobilizing the internet first is one of our primary focuses because that's what Monero is made for. I can buy something from a guy in Africa. I can buy something from a guy in South America. Using Monero and without having to do any of this nonsense exchange or how you accept dollars or you just accept your local currency. You just accept Monero. So mobilizing the internet is first, and that has actually come a long way. Next step is looking kind of point of sale, person to person. How do we optimize this peer-to-peer kind of transaction? And that is getting kickstarted. So. Soon, and it's coming along.
So, for the entrepreneur out there listening, there is this confusion. Let's just call it confusion, and it comes down to knowledge, right? And the more knowledge you understand of what you're getting yourself into, the less confused you are, right? So there's some cryptocurrencies out there that allow for a type of entrepreneurship where the design and the endeavor can happen within chain by integrating in chain. Perfect example of this would be a company like Blockstream, right? Mm-hmm. Then there is the other type of entrepreneurship which is more at the outskirts, right, of creating that financial liquidity outside the coin. A great example of this would be BitPay, right? Mm-hmm. Monero. Do you foresee a Blockstream happening within Monero? I personally can't.
Yeah, I can't either. I can't either. It's, you may have some initiatives pop up, be they kind of nonprofits or for-profit businesses. And once again, you also see this like with Zcash, they have the Zcash Foundation, and then also the Electronic Coin Company, both of which are very heavily involved in Zcash's production. I foresee for quite some time Monero's core, not just coding and development and stuff, but kind of ethos coming from this grassroots, open source, remote, decentralized thing. It's what makes Monero as pure as it is. We wouldn't necessarily be against, like, if the corporation was like, okay, we are going to hire a person that is that will just have work on Monero full time. That wouldn't necessarily be something we are against, but it would definitely be looked at with great suspicion and scrutiny, especially looking into Bitcoin and what has happened with Bitcoin as a result of too many corporate interests kind of just locking it into place and making it a very immobile currency, right? So it would be looked at with great suspicion. And I think Monero has learned a lot of those lessons. So as these corporate interests start coming in, they wouldn't be unwelcome, but we're probably going to be much better at putting up these guidelines in terms of how we would like this to look, how we would like this to function. And we actually already see this, right? So Fluffy Pony, which is one of the core team members, he has a couple of businesses like Tari, which is a different currency being built on top of Monero and Globy, which is similar to BitPay, right? And the Monero community has actually been really good at keeping them at an arm's length. So, working with them in the sense that is mutually beneficial without really handing over this power of purity and open source that is at the very core. So I am very hopeful that the Monero community would be able to withstand a corporate storm much better than Bitcoin did in becoming just an immobilized currency.
This is so significant and so magnificent at the same time, and this really sets Monero apart from everything else. Now, the question here, let's say the libertarian question, that's begged, that comes forth is how do we assure that from happening, and how do we assure that the almost sanctity of this remains, right? And so the question to you is, do we rely on market forces to provide that incentive for us to continue on this path? Or is this something where we have to almost impose ourselves to safeguard the network? And I mean, there's pros and cons to both. What's the answer?
So that's kind of what cypherpunk is all about, right? We're trying to reduce the ability that humans have to corrupt a system by locking certain aspects of it via cryptography. So the idea behind Bitcoin being only 21 million in existence is that no human can decide, I'm going to inflate or deflate the currency because it's locked into the protocol how many will exist. This is very cypherpunk ideology where we say, okay, mathematics enforces this. No human can just decide because humans can be corrupt, right? So Monero really, really holds to that as well. And this, just this idea of random X algorithm that's going to be coming up in October. We see the amount of power that miners have in the Bitcoin network with their ASICs, which are very inaccessible to the common person to acquire. So only select few people can be miners, and these people can collude to enforce what they would like on the chain. And we saw this a couple of years ago with this big Bitcoin civil war going on, right? So Monero, as a part of its kind of cypherpunk ideology, we're like, okay, we want, and this is just one area in which we do this, we want to keep the miners, the mineability of Monero accessible to everyone. So we're switching over to a CPU-friendly algorithm, RandomX, in October, and this will allow anyone to mine, which really gives anyone power to not only secure the network, but kind of push it in the direction that they want to go. And with the idea that if there is a big tug of war between thousands of people, the center of the rope is going to generally stay centered, just because everyone's pulling in their own different directions. So really, Monero has this core cypherpunk ideology that we're constantly asking these questions. And if anyone sees a weak spot or weaknesses in Monero, like, oh, but I think we're vulnerable to this kind of attack, social attack, financial attack. We solve these problems. We're talking with our mathematicians, we're talking with each other and our developers. How can we solve these problems to minimize the attack surface that humans have in corrupting the system?
Wow, amazing. How can the everyday layman get involved in this? Because one of the beautiful things that you learn in Austrian economics is that the individual entrepreneur sees the excesses and deficits in the economy, and they can come in and so if someone wants to contribute ideas, projects, become vigilant in making sure that the rule set of this Byzantine fault tolerant system that is the cypherpunk ethos is that remains pristine. How can they get involved?
Well, first things first, you gotta join the community, you gotta get involved, make sure your voice is heard. If nobody's hearing voices, so if you have an issue but you keep it to yourself, or if you have ideas of how the system can be improved but you keep it to yourself, this information is not being shared with people, and we cannot improve the system, we cannot make it more robust in that way. So the very first thing that you can do is definitely get involved and make your voice heard. People's voices, especially as you start to build reputation within the community, they start meaning a lot. Right, so if we don't have this kind of merchant entrepreneurial voice in the system, then it's just not going to be considered as much as we start deciding where the protocol is going to go moving forward. And if that's you, you're an entrepreneur, you want to see Monero move in a direction where you can mobilize its capital, please get involved. If you go to getmonero.org, which is a website, we have several places, several communities. We got one on Telegram, we got one on Discord, we got one on Reddit, all these different places, and we're looking into expanding more. Some people are like, well, I use this one. We're like, okay, how can we get a community started there? And it's tough because we're short on hands, and these places need some maybe moderation, so there's no spammers going on, right? So there's it's difficult to get all these things up and running so that way everyone's voice is heard, but it's actually a big deal for Monero that everyone's voice is heard, because this is a money for the people. This is a money for everybody, so we want everyone to have a say in it. So definitely get involved. Look how you can get involved. Maybe you see about how sponsoring a couple people to be moderators or be one yourself, something like that.
So in getting involved, let me ask you a question that I know everyone's probably thinking right now. How is the Random X audit? How are the audits going? I knew that there's 4 audits.
All 4 are done.
They're done?
All 4 are done.
Okay.
And very teeny minor details and optimizations that were very swiftly fixed. The reviews were glowing, and we have very high expectations. It's going to be coming in October. This may not age well, and that it completely fails, right? But like just these 4 audits, which 4 is a massive amount of audits, right? We got 4 audits on this new algorithm, and all of them were very hopeful and didn't find much of anything at all wrong with our implementation or our math. So we have high hopes for this.
Okay, and what were the entities that made these external audits?
Okay, so there was Kudleski Security. I don't know if I could pronounce that. There was Quartz Lab. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but we have a repository on GitHub by Howard Chu, HYC. He has all of the audit reports that are freely accessible to the public by all 4 of them.
Awesome. Diego, will we be seeing that at Anarchapulco and CryptoPulco 2020?
Oh man, when is that? Where is that?
February.
Where is it?
February 13th through the 16th. I will put that in the comments below exactly when the dates are, because they're not the exact dates that we had on Anarchapulco 2019. They're a little different. We'll put them in the description below. But yeah, would love to have you. So please consider coming.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great time, and I wanted to come last year. Things came up, but I'll try to make it this year. It definitely sounds like something I want to go to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Diego.
You're very welcome.
This is awesome. Thank you for everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hype, I'm trying to tell ya, this the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't wanna miss it. You should roll through, talking politics to health and self-improvement to investing. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect, all about growth. Way more than a conference, this is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.